Yeah, I got to be honest. I didn't grow up. My parents both were disabled, so they didn't have careers, and so it wasn't until 2 years ago I didn't know what a warrant officer was.
Oh, wow.
I'd always knew about the military. I had a grandfather who was in the Air Force, but my grandfathers, I think, were just tired of life and kind of having to re-raise kids. Where we never talked about military service. We never had any discussions about like having a career in the military and what does that look like. And so I, at some point you learn some things along the way.
Right.
But I remember, actually, it was last. I think it was last year. We were hosting. I was sponsoring a Trash Pandas game. I worked for Mantech, and we got to throw out the first pitch. And so I'm asking some of the guys that work for me, hey, who would like to do this? And like most people are like, I don't want to do that. They'll be embarrassed. They're going to throw their arm out. You got to throw a strike. It will laugh at you. And this one guy was like, I'll do it. And like, okay, what's your title? It was a veterans. It was a game to honor veterans. And most of Mantech is veterans. And I'm like, what was your rank? And he's like, I was a Chief Warrant Officer 3. I'm like, what? And I kind of realized, like, how did I go through life and not realize of this whole system of enlisted versus officer versus warrant officer?
Right.
Somehow I did. So I appreciate, like, again, this is why I do these episodes, so I can learn some things. And hopefully by the time I pass, I'll have learned a lot of things that I didn't have a chance.
So warrant officers don't get talked about a lot.
I guess not.
They're this mysterious middle ground group. We call them the quiet professionals. I used to call them the untouchables because nobody could mess with Chief. They're all called Chief. You might call her Ms. Evans, but we just call her Chief.
Yeah.
But they do amazing work for us, right? And that's why they're untouchable, and they're not truly, but revered and regarded and coveted. When you've got great warrant officers working for you, you've really got tremendous capability in your force. And I had a team of warrant officers working for me at LOGSA, and Chief was one of them, just leading the way in there. And so, but it's just funny to hear you say, I never knew what a chief was. Well, there's a lot of people in the Army that really don't fully understand what a chief is, what it really takes to make one right. You can't just hire somebody and make them a chief. We grow chiefs. Like, she did 6 years before she became a chief warrant officer. Julian did 9. He was a sergeant first class. He was a senior, proven non-commissioned officer when he decided to become a warrant officer. And so they all have different paths, and then they have different skill sets, different special powers.
Yeah.
But they're super.
So if you're not, I guess, you can either go one of two ways. Let me just hear me out. The non-commissioned route, which also includes warrant officer, or you go the commissioned route, the officer route. And so then is the warrant officer portion of the non-commissioned just improve? So is a more illustrious career, more training, more requirements?
So warrant officers, so you have two types. You have a technical warrant and you have an aviation warrant.
Okay.
So in the Army, most of our pilots are are warrant officers. You do have some that are old gray that fly, but majority of warrant officers.
Okay.
So those are the ones that have the option of doing it the way that we did it as technicians, or either flight school to high school to flight school, where they can graduate high school, take the test and go to basic training and go to warrant officer school and become a pilot. Now, those guys do not like being called chief. They don't like being called chief because they're E7 or E8 that's in the cockpit with them are called chief.
They have a crew chief.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's an enlisted man. Sergeant. Yep.
But for the type of warrant that I was and Julian was, we were called technical warrants, meaning we're the subject matter expert in our particular field.
Gotcha.
Julian was a missile maintenance guy. So he did a lot of the missile work, the weapon systems. I was a 920 Bravo, which is supply system technician, which is it's logistics, but also it's logistics to another power. You have another portion that's a 920 Alpha, where they handle the property books. But on my side, we handle all types of logistics as well as the logistical systems.
Warehousing, supply chain functions.
Right.
Yeah.
She would be the detailed technical expert for the automated systems, that handled the supplies, multiple types of supplies for the Army, and then how much needed to be on hand, where, when, when we're trying to get it from somewhere because we don't have it now. We got broke tanks. She'd find the solution.
And I could see how, going back to his episode, when he ended up taking over 2 brigades, right? And that's a huge piece of that is logistics, right? And I'm sure you're trying to get your hands around 60. You went up to 64,000 troops or something like
Contractors
that.
in the across Afghanistan and the Arabian Peninsula. Yeah, it wasn't in that time. It wasn't a huge number of soldiers I had assigned to me because of the type of brigades we had in the AMC, and it was a little bit more Army civilians, but it was all these contractors that were technically under the command. Yeah. And so, warrant officers could do amazing things for us.